wouldn't it be interesting if we just basically embraced all of our human traits, including the stuff we're doing that is just ridiculous? You're doing ridiculous stuff because you're human. You're making mistakes and you're making them again. You don't have to go to psychoanalysis for 12 or 15 years. You can get that starting right this minute, your experience is completely legitimate, 100%. Even the fact that you are sure it isn't is legitimate. You see, we all feel that about ourselves, that there's something wrong with us. So it makes it entirely normal to know that you're not normal. People who are really tired of being tired, people who really knew that their life could be way bigger than it was, all they really wanted to know is that they were normal human beings going through the pains and suffering as well as the thrills and chills of being a human. And once we were able to connect at that level, like resonate at that level, look at each other square in the eye and get that we're both humans. I don't have that much more than you do, except that I'm a human too, and I know that. Then a new level of healing would take place at that very instant, And if we took the diagnosis and prescription out of the way, carefully, by the way, I'm not suggesting that your listener should do that right away. And by the way, also, I'm not even suggesting that I'm diminishing the power of the pain that people are in. Frankly, I would say that I'm emphasizing the pain that people are in and actually giving us access to it rather than declaring that it's something wrong with us. Like being in that level of pain in this world is actually authentic and appropriate. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. In fact, if you're pretending not to be in pain in this world, you're full of shit, actually.
Yeah, it's completely understandable to the point, and from my point of view, where like there'd probably be something strange if you weren't feeling existential pain the way the world is.
That's right. That's right. And it's not just the way the world is the last 2 years, by the way. It's the way the world's been. I mean, it's the way the world, it's always been the worst that it's ever been. It's just gotten a little worse. I mean, it's always been it's always been the best it's ever been. It just got a little better. It's always been that. The best of times, the worst of times, that wasn't written last year. That was written like a few decades ago. And it was right when he wrote it. And what's here is to get that this diagnostic stuff and these treatments and prescriptions and this willingness to relinquish or acquiesce into a mental health diagnosis so that you can write off the things that you do that you're either ashamed of or uncomfortable with in your life, like the habits you have where you hurt somebody or where you don't follow through that which you think you should, and therefore get to write it off as having a certain condition. Look, if you want to take responsibility for the stuff that I'm doing when I'm a jerk, I'm completely cool with that. If I could give it off to somebody else, or a condition, honey, that's not me. That's my bipolar disorder. Oh, that's not me. That's my ADHD. That's my PTSD. That's my major depression coming back. We can do it that way, except wouldn't it be interesting if we just basically embraced all of our human traits, including the stuff we're doing that is just ridiculous? Hello, you're doing ridiculous stuff because you're human. You're making mistakes and you're making them again. Why? Because you're human. It's all good. It's all bad. It's all the same. We're all doing that. What I have found more than anything is that when people hear this can be remarkably inspiring. That you don't have to go to psychoanalysis for 12 or 15 years. You don't have to move to Tibet. You don't have to live in a cave. You don't even have to sit under a Bodhi tree. You don't have to do anything. You can get that starting right this minute, your experience right this second is completely legitimate. 100%. Even the fact that you are sure it isn't is legitimate. You see, we all feel that about ourselves, that there's something wrong with us. So it makes it entirely normal to know that you're not normal. Because we all know that we're not normal.
And by the way, on the flip side, if somebody was like, nope, there is nothing wrong with me,
that's bullshit.
We would diagnose them as a narcissist.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, that's right. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah, for sure. Or, the world of bipolar, people are like, I don't want to get too happy. I'm like, yeah, that would be a bummer, wouldn't it? Or yeah, you don't want to get too happy. You don't want to get too sad. You don't want to be up too long. You don't want to not have enough sleep. You don't want to eat too much. You don't want to eat too little. You don't even know how much normal is. The word normal has never even been defined. And we blow around the word abnormal like we understand what it is, when abnormal, of course, is a term based on some very vague understanding of what normal is, which is,
Well, yeah, the word normal just comes from the Latin word for a right angle.
isn't that interesting?
Yeah, what the hell does that actually have to do with a human life?
Yeah, that's interesting. Or you can use it in mathematics, like
Yeah.
normal being like the 50th percentile or the mean.
Yeah, I mean, if you're engineering a bridge, I hope that your joints are at true normal intersections, but what the hell does that have to do with the complexity of a human existence? Like,
Well, I'll tell you what it has to do with. We have bought it hook, line, and sinker as being something that we hang our hats on. So you're right, it doesn't really fit. And on the other hand, it has become the background prevailing conversation to support mental health, or to support the, like I'm in mental health. It's so interesting. Mental health and mental illness are synonymous with each other these days. It's like you
mhm.
can't tell if someone's saying that they're mental, like they're like, it's,
It's like a pathological science, basically.
it really is. It's interesting that you say that. So I think it's the only science or the only medical subspecialty. I'm pretty sure about this. No one has ever brought one up to me otherwise. Where when someone comes to a psychiatrist's office, and again, I've had 40,000 people come to my office in various shapes or forms in those 30 years, and you say something to them like there's nothing wrong with you, they get furious. There's no other medical condition where that is the case.
Hmm.
Like, do you mind? Can you see going in hoping that your heart is okay and having someone tell you your heart is okay and you just getting pissed? Like, that's what happens in mental health. If someone comes in and you tell them, well, you don't have an anxiety disorder. You actually, your anxiety is like legitimate. Maybe you should stop drinking a pot of coffee a day, or maybe the fact that your mother's dying is really concerning.
Right.
Um, and they say, wait, yeah, but there's something wrong with me. And you're like, no. Then they will actually leave your office irritated and go next door to another office that can prove to them there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, they came for the quick fix.
They came to be told there was something wrong with them,
Yeah.
which is even more important than the quick fix. So
Mm.
that's how Undoctor got developed. Initially, Undoctor, initially in 2006, when I started pulling people off, I was of the I think, very common, the very common notion that medicines were the problem. But there was no fruit in going there at all, because medicines are an inert substance and medicines are not the problem. The same way rat poison is not the problem. There's no problem. It's just medicine. So what is the problem? So I backed off a little more and I'm like, oh, the problem is that people think they have a problem. That's the problem. The problem is that people think there's something actually wrong with them, and they have convinced themselves that there's something wrong with them for which they should now carry a diagnosis so that they can relinquish responsibility for some portion of their life. And once they get that done, then they can walk around having done that. Again, with all due respect to anybody who's got a diagnosis who's listening, if it's working for you to have that diagnosis and you're being treated in a way that leaves you completely optimized to a level that you wouldn't want to change a thing, then please, please, please don't change a thing. This is not putting you down. This is not diminishing what you're doing. If you got to a space where your life is working and you have some psychiatric diagnosis, like, seriously, yay for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is not for that. This is for the people who aren't sure about their diagnosis, or who are sure they don't have what they think they have, or who are taking medicines that frequently actually, unfortunately, perpetuate and in some cases actually cause the symptoms they're marketed to treat. That is pretty remarkable. These medicines frequently actually perpetuate and in some cases cause the symptoms they're marketed to treat. And that's a pretty great business model. But in fact, when you really look at it, you wouldn't be able to tell if that's true or not if you went from within the machine.
Right.
You would think that when you got worse, that was your symptoms showing up.
Mm-hmm.
and you take medicines to alleviate that. So that's why medicine doses go up and up and up and up. And now the average person taking psychiatric meds is taking 4 or 5 meds. And the older people who are on psychiatric meds, believe it or not, they're taking up to 12, 15 meds for their psychiatric conditions. But they didn't start off with 12 or 15. They started off with 1. And then things got worse, and then someone decided that, oh, there's an emergence of number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and now you're on 15 meds. And if you're on 15 psychiatric meds, you're gonna be sick. I promise.
Yeah. Then at that point, you probably do have a condition.
No, you definitely do, and that's what I'm saying is that these medicines. See, this is in the most heinous way. In the most sort of unacceptable way. The idea that on occasion these medicines actually cause the symptoms they're marketed to treat, like directly. So when you take an antidepressant and you're not depressed, then you can expect in a few weeks to actually be depressed because that's what the antidepressants do.
And I love the way they put suicide is actually one of the contraindications in the fine print of antidepressants.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like that's never been lost on me. Like, okay, if my risk of suicide goes up when I take this, I'd probably rather just deal with how I'm feeling.
Yeah, your risk of suicide definitely goes up. And again, it's there, the system is extremely well designed. Why do I know that? Because people line up around the block every morning at 8 to be the first person into the pharmacy to fill their monthly meds so that they can confirm that they have a diagnosis. And if you let them know that they don't, they might never ever talk to you again. Some of the biggest complaints that I've had, and I have a couple, are from people who think that I was rude by actually challenging whether or not there was something wrong with them. And they see that as being abrasive when they know there's something wrong with them and they want to have it confirmed.
Right.
And so it's really a sore spot for some people.
My son is actually reading 1984 right now. And I told him, great, you're getting to look to the past to see the present. That's really exciting.
Well, it's interesting. As I recall, it's in 3 sections, and I've had a hard time going from section 2 to section 3 because it's so shockingly real and so frightening, and I kind of have a clue what happens in section 3. So I actually have been too afraid to read section 3, and I haven't gotten there.
Well, it's been years for me, so I wouldn't be the one to give you the spoiler. I'd have to go refresh, but yeah, that was a powerful. I'll tell you, I went through a phase as a young person that Brave New Worlds, Fahrenheit 451, like, yeah. and Lord of the Flies, yeah, Lord of the Flies, and it was. I'm almost surprised. I don't know. I'm almost surprised the powers that be actually let children read that stuff back then because, man, it really freaks you out.
It does. It does. And, there's something so core humanity about it that's what makes it so scary. It's like, wow, yeah, I guess that's insurmountable. With the way we think, it's sort of inevitable. Oh, if it's really inevitable, then that's what we're looking at around the corner. And if that's what we're looking at around the corner, we better ask ourselves, what are we doing today? What do you got to say about right now? What are you doing with this stuff that you are taking for granted that maybe isn't just a birthright? Maybe it's something that has been a gift that we're taking for granted that could easily be taken away from us and leave us with an entirely new existence. And I think, boiling down to what you said about my, when speaking about my bio, that's what has come down for me. And especially, I think today more than any other day, I woke up with a couple of, socks to the head, basically, and some conversations like, whoa, by 6 o'clock, I was like, whoa, and
that's 6 a.m. to be clear.
6 a.m. Yeah. And by 6 a.m., I have my personal trainer at 6 a.m. So by 5:50, when I was stupid enough to check my email, there was like, oh, wow. And then I had a couple more little, slaps to the face about this or that. And it's like, all right, I guess so. And, the life is changing, communication is changing, it's difficult times. And I don't know a better thing to pursue. I mean, I feel kind of helpless at various times, or, I can certainly dip into feeling hopeless or to being, to being, let's say, resigned,
Yeah.
and when that happens, all the wind goes out of my sails. And when that happens, I'm like, oh yeah, big bad Dr. Fred's just like, melted into butter. And it's like, well, how am I going to get up again? How am I going to get up again and speak to the power of true voice? Like, who gave me that? Who gave me that opportunity? Why am I synonymous? Why am I on the front edge of bringing, true voice as the essence of healing? Because it just is. That's why. It just is. Let's get right down to brass tacks. If you're not speaking authentically, if you're not connecting with other people, if you're not resonating with that person, whether or not you agree with them, you're not getting very much done. I can promise you that. And your life isn't that good.
Yeah. So I want to dig into this, like, and I mean, I want to like cut deep.
Go.
And I'll just give you a brief bit of context that my audience already knows. I mean, the last 3.5 years for me has been one big running ongoing experiment in finding my true voice.
Beautiful.
I have fully embraced the subtle art of not giving up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that from a place of aggressive, like belligerent, I'm going to show them. I say it from a really sincere place of like,
that's how the book is written. And the book is written for that. It's not a book. It's right there. You're right.
Yeah. It's like, you can't like, as the more I find my true voice, the better my business goes, the bigger my podcast gets. I got a book deal that's coming out, like all that. It's like the world is so hungry for it that it's not just finding your voice. I feel like for me, it's the energy exchange that starts happening when because you are truly in your voice, you are truly heard and truly felt. And then that energy is reciprocated to you and you start getting what you're giving.
Exactly.
And the nurturing energy of authentic reciprocity heals and grows in a way that, I don't have the medical background, but I've been to guys like you on the other side who tried to medicate me and I didn't get shit out of it.
Yeah. No, the medication, you talked a little bit about undoctor. So undoctor is something that affectionately was a name I picked up a few years ago from a friend, because what I have been doing for the last 15 years, just to let your audience know, is, I've been a psychiatrist for 32, 33 years. And I went into psychiatry so that I could bring communication into the field, because I was so sick of the way psychiatrists were dealing with the kids I was working with at the state mental health facility. We'd call them and Jimmy was up too late, or Tony and Timmy got into a fight in the afternoon. And the psychiatrist would come down, from his call room with his weapon and this thing called a pen, and would talk to Jimmy for 3 seconds, talk to this childcare worker for 7 seconds, and then go into the nursing office and write some order. And then we'd have to go get Jimmy and then hold him down in the quiet room while the nurse got the injection ready and pounded it into his hip so that he was left in a stupor for the next 12 or 24 hours, and that was considered a success. And this happened so many times that it was so heinous and barbaric that I simply couldn't stand it, even though by that time I had dropped out of college for a second time, where I made it my business to go back to college and simply bring communication effectively into the world of mental health and psychiatry. And 13 years later, there I was as a child and adolescent trained psychiatrist, graduate of Northwestern University, off to do that very thing. However, in the meantime, in 1987, Prozac was introduced to the world, and that was such a paradigmatic shifting agent. That changed everything. Most people are too young, to really understand what happened there. But what really happened is that what had been a communication field, the world of psychiatry, had now became a biological field, the world of chemical imbalances. And the idea was that if you're uncomfortable for any reason, then it's your fault. Then there's something wrong with you. Then you got a chemical abnormality. Then we got an app for you. We got a medicine for you. And so on the backside of Prozac came Zoloft, came Paxil, came all the mood stabilizers, all the atypical antipsychotics, all the, so many different drugs, atypical antidepressants. And then came all sorts of diagnoses that weren't even close to diagnoses before that. And now that you can't even walk to a psychiatrist's office anymore and not get a diagnosis. In fact, they're not allowed to send you out of the office without a diagnosis. When you show up at a psychiatrist's office and they write no diagnosis, then they will not get paid for that office visit. Now, so I had now become a psychiatrist, which made me a diagnostician, an extraordinary diagnostician. And not only that, I had now become an internationally acclaimed psychopharmacologist who, in fact, has written over 100,000 medication prescriptions in my life. None of them were good for me. None of them, not one of them, did I feel good about. And so my heart had been wrenching and my soul had been sacrificing for the last 30 years. And in 2006, I started doing something different. And this was the start of the Undoctor, which is I started really taking people off their medicine and then taking them off their diagnosis, and reliably they got better.
So I want to just share, partly because in, I don't know, roughly 200 episodes of this show, I've never actually shared what I'm about to share. And I feel like this is creating a space for me to just, I want to share this with my audience.
Cool.
And it's, I feel like you're a great person to share this with. So
super.
I've been prescribed psychiatric medications 3 times in my life. Once when I was a kid, and it was
Ritalin, Adderall.
It was Adderall. Yeah, I forget how I was like 14 years old, right?
Yeah.
Actually 4 times. I don't even remember what it was in high school when I dropped out because I just had problems at school. I hated school. I don't know, like kids do, right? And so therefore I must have been depressed. So I had that. And every time I took it for a few weeks and I hated the way it made me feel and I stopped. And then later in my 30s, so Ritalin, or it was Adderall, I quit taking because I was literally ripping my cuticles apart on my fingers. I was like picking my nails compulsively. I forget what happened on the second one in high school. I think I was just being rebellious and I never even took it enough to know what it would have done to me. I took a drug at one point called Strattera.
Yeah. That's what I thought you were going to tell me in high school. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's, I think I was prescribed that in my 20s. I was, look, I was a poor, struggling musician, going to school and teaching lessons and playing 300 to 400 gigs a year and not getting enough sleep. And I went through a divorce and took Strattera. I'm going to share this. If you have children in the room, cover their ears. I thought I had to pee. And I went to the toilet. I feel like you may know where I'm about to go with this. And semen was dribbling out of my penis as I thought I was taking a piss. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm out on this deal. And then later in my early 30s, when my wife and I were we were fighting, we were a new blended family couple and having tension and going through fighting. Or going through conflict, and we went to a therapist, and therapist was great, but I was like, I'm also going to just make sure, I don't know, whatever. And they gave me something called Depakote because they said, or valproic acid, those are the same thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, you're flying off the handle and you're ups and downs, and that started giving me what felt like electric shocks in my body. So it's like I'm like 0 for 4 on this crap, man. And you know what? You know what I've learned now that I live a completely chemical-free life? If you keep a regular schedule, you work out every day, you eat a clean diet without processed foods or simple carbs, and you actually heal your trauma, and you have a loving, nurturing relationships in your life, and you exclude the people that stress you out, and you love your work, life's freaking amazing, and you don't need drugs.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
It's amazing. You're absolutely right. Not only do you not need drugs, you see that this whole idea of mental health can be managed in so many different ways. And by the way, it'd be silly for us not to say or notice that sometime today you already have had a moment of feeling dead on miserable. Like more than likely sometime today you have had a moment where you went down to the bottom of the pool, where you were like, whoa. Right. Whoa.
Yeah, I was on an interview this is my 3rd interview. I was on 2 shows and now I'm hosting one. On the first one, there was a moment about 45 minutes in when my energy dipped and I lost my train of thought. And I was like, man, I feel weird. But then you're right. Like 10 minutes later, it was gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I have all those things on tools. As I mentioned, and as you mentioned in my bio, I have a spectacular relationship. And if you're going to be locked down with somebody, it might as well be with the best person you've ever met in your world. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got lucky like that. And then our 3 cats as well. And so I have that sort of taken care of. And then this idea of really, eating well, taking in what matters, surrounding yourself only with people that actually empower you, who you can empower. Getting the people who suck energy out of you, out of your life, with all due respect, taking good care of your physical vessel, whether that's working out or walking, or even just if you're meditating or mindfulness or whatever. Like actually doing the things you know are right, drinking a fair amount of water, watching your, watching your carbs or processed foods. Um, you can get a life that actually works, even in the face of external circumstances that are truly, you can't look at, they're truly unbearable, and they're truly like, they're truly shockingly challenging.
So let me ask you this. I mean, are there people
Hmm.
with, well, let me say this. So for most people, you're suggesting that the medication, and even more than that, the identity, the labeling of self as damaged in some way, shape, or form, that is essentially just a coping mechanism for legitimate ailments that are externally related, and that in some ways it's just easier to medicate than to deal with the problem. And maybe they feel trapped and they don't know how to shift out of it, or maybe they just don't want to do that work. But are there scenarios where people legitimately have like a neurological misfire that they need one of these drugs for?
Hey, sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to let you know you can get a free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut, which shows you the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy. And there's a special link just for this episode in the description. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
So that's a pretty advanced question. I get asked every other podcast that I'm on. So here's what I have to say about it. Number one, the first thing is it's not linear. It's not linear. Like I want relief too when I feel like I just do. And these medicines, they cause like short-term relief, many of them.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that cutting off your arm would cause short-term relief for the mosquito bite you have on your elbow.
Okay. Yeah.
It would. Until you realize you don't have an arm, and that's why you don't have an elbow, and that's why you don't have a mosquito bite. It's like, well, that was a pretty big price to pay, wasn't it? So, there are people in the world, like people say, what about Putin, or what about Stalin, or what about Hitler, or what about, pedophiles, and those are really difficult and challenging questions. Here, with all due respect, I have as little respect for those people as anybody. It's not like I have a new level of respect for those people. But what I do have is there's something in these folks, all of us, that really more than anything wants or wanted to be heard and loved, at least at one point.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
I have some friends. I have a friend in particular. I have a number of friends. People, if you get to hang out with me, you get to be freaking weird, because all I hang out with are total crazy, angelic, ultra cosmic beings. That's who's my friends. And I have some friends who really pulled off some horrible stuff when they were growing up. Like really horrible stuff, like gang murders and all that. And then they turned around their life and they were doing that stuff because they were good. You see, they were doing that stuff because they were being really, really, really good inside of the rules that they were playing the game in.
Right.
They were so good at it. And all they were doing was what they thought was what a good boy would do.
So they were getting needs met.
That's right. Just like all of us. At one point, they realized, oh, this bad stuff isn't good anymore. So I'm going to actually go to the other side and start doing good stuff. And they now do that good stuff with the same level of conviction that they did the bad stuff. And these are the most trustworthy people I've ever met in my life, for sure. For sure, positively. Like I sent my wife to a vision quest with this particular guy for 4 days, just him and her. And it was a zero concern. Zero. I would have more concern about anybody else in the world than him. Once you visited what it means to really be a human and taken some good hard looks at the work which clearly you've done, and I've done a little bit of it myself, and once it is clear that you have taken a look at the misery that sometimes arises in life that becomes nearly intolerable, if not truly intolerable, and considered that as part of what it means to be human, now you graduate into a class called wise or sage or powerful or humble or what? Steady, grounded, human, compassionate, forgiving, accepting. You know, there's something you have to do when you get there. It's an evolved state. Not everybody gets there. But I can tell people who have been there. I feel like I can tell. And I, because I resonate with them, you know, because life does suck. I've cried a number of times today. Literally, my cheeks are wet. That's not because I was having a good time during those moments. I was not. I'm having a great time right this moment. Super great. To be exactly where I am and express what's up with being an effing human. You got something better for me to do? I'll go do that. But in the meantime, I don't have anything better to do. I just don't. So if this is being expressed to a number of people and maybe some small percentage of them are converting, like, 10% are actually listening and thinking, wow, that's cool shit. I just changed my life because I just heard Dr. Fred say that. Damn. That's called making an influence. That's called making a difference. That's called authenticity, breeding authenticity, like you had mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's actually so ironic. Literally, you know how when you came on, you said, hey, I got something to do. And I was like, that's cool. I got something to do. And then we waited 5 minutes and started the show here. Right. So the thing that I was doing was uploading a little 60-second video I shot, just my content creation cadence, whatever. And in it, it was specifically about, I was saying, look, like if we were going to grade all the influencers in the world and say like The Rock is like level 100, I don't know, I'm like a 22 or something, right? Like I'm on the scale, I'm climbing the scale, my ascendancy is happening pretty quick, but like I have no delusions of grandeur, right? But like what I was saying is right now it's me popping up in your feed. Hi, I'm Jeff and you can do it. And I'm inspirational and I'm good for you. Like we're here to have me give you something of value, right? And I'm like, and if you're watching stuff like this, you're seeing people like me and many people that are much more prominent and famous and impactful and all this stuff. And that's great. Download all the good information that you can, but never for 1 second compare the totality of your life that you inhabit every second of every day to these tiny slivers that you see. And the mere act of comparison will do far more harm than any amount of good in the information that you're downloading from the people that you're seeing popping up in your feed. Right. And anyway, so what occurs to me, that was the point of my video, but what occurs to me as you're saying this is that like we as human beings have such a tendency to artificially differentiate us from people that we view to be much better than us, and also from people that we view to be much worse than us. It's like everybody in the fat part of the bell curve, like we're humanity, but then you have like the psychopaths over there and you have the superstars over there, and we don't really consider either extreme to be human.
True.
We're all human.
True.
And there is a Hitler in every one of us, and there is a Michael Jordan in every one of us. True. And there is both at the same time coexisting in every one of us. Yeah, and that is, I do believe that. I do not believe that Hitler is neurological wiring that is different than me.
Right. No.
I agree with you that Hitler is a set of needs and an experience of trauma that were unmet and that were destructive and never resolved, that led him down a path that I think it is actually dangerous to think that I could never go there. That's actually the danger.
It is. Brilliant.
I think. And that's coming from a Jew.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Jewish here as well. I really hear you. And, when you can think like that, there's just, look, congratulations for getting like that, for getting that even 1 second before you die. Like, there's something about getting there that has you be, like, you took a step in this life to get to that. To remember that of all the 7.8 billion who are presently alive, and the other whatever number of billion, probably 7.8 again, I don't even know that number, that have ever been alive, we share these dark sides. Like, there's part of us that really realize that, this whether it's ethnic cleansing or, you know, invasions into another country or sex trafficking, these things that just fuck us up. They fuck us up because they're little seeds in us. They're little seeds in us, you know? And I'm not saying, again, so, oh, did you hear him? He said something. You know, that's the other thing, is that social media has now created a situation that even if you say something like that, it could be heard as being supportive of Hitler or something.
Oh yeah, somebody could clip it and be like, oh, they stitched two things together and Jeff said that he identifies with Hitler or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? By the way, if you're going to do that, like,
kiss my ass.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, I'm sorry, you have nothing better to do. And yeah, hopefully you don't turn into that. By the 117 billion, by the way, I Googled it. That's how many people are purported to have ever lived.
All right, 117. Good enough.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all, that's
No,
all.
no. But no, it's
Every
true.
one of them.
I think of it as like incremental increments, right? Like if I was born at the 50-yard line and on a really bad day when I compromised my ethics, I moved a few yards towards one end zone, towards the dark end zone. Fortunately, something else rebounded me back to the 50-yard line. But what if it had actually been followed by something else that nudged me the other way again? And a string of nudges, suddenly I was at the 30-yard line. And like you start to lose your grasp and you start to lose your ability to get yourself back. I mean, I've plunged down dark holes.
No doubt. No
They were
doubt.
never that dark, but
Well, pretty dark, Jeff. You've been down some holes. It's pretty clear.
I mean, I think it's just us being honest. Like,
Yeah.
and this is the authentic voice thing though, is like, if
Yeah.
I literally, when I said I'm at the point where I literally don't give a fuck, it's like, I would rather authentically own that I have come face to face with my capacity for depravity.
Yeah.
And that I had fortunately just enough lingering decency from having been raised by wonderful parents to go, I do not like the way this feels. And I better make a hasty about face and try to find some good to pull myself out with. That, like, I mean, thank God for that. But
Yeah, good for it. Yeah.
but I'd rather own that than you know, just stay up here and pretend that we're all, you know, in Stepford.
Yeah. You know, this idea of pretending to be somebody in order to protect the person that you really are is so ludicrous and ineffective, and yet was created by a child called you. And, you know, when you pretended to be more upset than you were so you could get a lollipop, or when you pretended that, you know, you didn't do it, your sister did it so she would get in trouble, or when you pretended to be sick so you didn't have to go to school so the bully wouldn't screw with you, or, you know, all those things. It served a purpose. It paid dividends at the time. And then, you know, I like to say that the crack in the cement got a little bit larger over time because we never went back and fixed it.
Yeah.
And now we spend most of our life, and for most of us, you know, in a fair amount of duplicity and pretentiousness. A fair amount pretending to be someone that we're not. Pretending to be strong, stable, steady, you know, even loving, caring, all that shit that we really work hard to pretend so that we will belong. You know, as if there is a way to be, you know, and you know, even we pretend to be civil, you know, or we pretend to be kosher, or we pretend to be whatever your word is, you know. All those things have a string of pretension inciting them. So just it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It means that we should have access to the acceptance, the forgiveness, and the compassion for ourselves for having come that way. It's fine. It's fine. It's no problem.
And don't get lost in the ruse.
Exactly, right?
Where you don't have the authentic home base to return to, or at least to long for.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no, the authentic, look, the tears this week, you know, I'm just coming off finishing the course I teach, the course I guess your listeners could be interested in, is a course called TVP, or
tell us about it, please. My listeners, I'm confident.
True Voice Podcasting, and we just finished our second cohort moments ago, actually. That was the last course of 13 weeks. That's what I was finishing up before I started here. And, really looking at the time is now to bring our true voice forward. And I don't have a better methodology to doing that. I don't have a better platform to do that than the present day podcasting world. Social media is way, way more restrictive, way more constricted, way more censoring and canceling and algorithm based, and they own your stuff on social media. Whereas here, we still own our stuff. You can still speak your real truth. You can help people redevelop their own thoughts and ideas. There's a listenership that you can get, a fan base that you can get. You can aim this message at that particular demographic in the middle of, Singapore if you want. There's something about podcasting that's very beautiful. And what I got in this today was this idea that, and it really affects me today anyways, like, I told you I took some shots earlier today that, from people here and there who was upset with me or misunderstood me or took things out of context in my world. But then I got, what am I doing? Like, is this too late? Can I really make a difference in this world? Is it already too late? Has the dawn already come?
Yeah.
And
I very much relate to that question. I just want you to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when the answer lands on, yep, it's too late, it's a very painful moment. And I'm not sure what's going to get me up. I want to go get high or go have sex or go eat a lot of food or go do something for pleasure. Go, I don't know.
Dopamine at any cost.
A dopamine at any cost. Exactly. My trainer, and it sounds like you know this, my trainer's like, dude, when that happens, do 100 push-ups. And it's like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I could see where that works. So go run the field. There's something to training that really it is a way to metabolize this as well. And then something happens, like, my cats will show up, or Alexandra will show up, or someone like you will show up, where we get to take on a way freaking cool conversation. Like, this is a way cool conversation, right? This is out there. We're already out there. We won't even know it till we're done. But it's like, well, this is a cool conversation. And the impact we're making, let's hope that we're affecting 10, 20, 30% of the people who are listening. We should get this out yesterday because it's cool stuff. It's stuff that most people are struggling with, and not very many people, especially men, have the articulation that you and I have as we take this stuff on. They just don't. It's not like they're less than us. They just weren't bred to speak like this.
And they've probably never really been given permission to play, to develop the skill set.
Yeah.
I mean, I recognize, by the way, I love what you're saying about podcasting. It's, however many, I think I'm about 200 episodes deep. And this has been the sandbox in which I've always been a fairly eloquent person, but I've developed this sense of permission.
Exactly.
To be authentic and have conversations like this and not feel like an imposter, right. And B, not like, this is my domain. If you don't like what I have to say, there's literally a million other podcasts you can go listen to, but I will not compromise for you.
Yeah.
And I hear you about podcasting. It is kind of the last bastion of pure self-created dominion. Yeah.
It is. What Joe and Spotify had last month was a little bit of a challenge to that, and whoever they are, the forces, got close to being making a difference in cancellation. But the truth is, for us schmoes who got a few hundred or a few thousand or tens of thousands of downloads, we're still safe. We're still safe to speak our truth and to make a difference for the people who are listening. And every so often we can land 1 million downloads. And if you land 1 million downloads, that's such a remarkable event. It's such a remarkable event. It's so shocking that if in fact you can load a gem and then send it 1 million deep, dude, you just did something unbelievable.
That's like some guerrilla warfare right there.
That's guerrilla warfare, exactly. Yeah. And you can do that. It is conceivable that this episode could do that, for instance. It just goes and goes and goes.
Yeah, you built it, and you build it and you compound it. And I mean, I'm looking now, I'm approaching 200,000 downloads all time now,
That's cool. Good
which
for
is
you.
cool. I mean,
Yeah, 22 out of 100 or whatever you said.
yeah, we're getting there, but no, I mean, here's the thing. If nobody listened, this would still be my therapy. This would still be my psychiatry. This would still be developmentally essential for me.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. It is. It's a place to speak, in the world of True Voice, in the methodology of True Voice. This is a group of like-minded individuals who are committed to improving their conversation through authentically speaking and radical listening to move the needle forward in any setting. Okay.
So can you lean into radical listening for us and unpack that? And
Yeah,
I didn't mean to cut you off. If you want to finish.
No, that's great. Please. Listening is the key ingredient here. Listening is a lot more important than vocalities. And what I mean by that is, first of all, you can never get in trouble if all you're doing is listening, ever. There's never been somebody who's listened and got in trouble for listening.
Right.
You can't put your foot in your mouth. You can't even misunderstand. You can't do anything until you speak. You can't cause trouble until you speak. So it's a very safe little space to go to and to get out of your own way, as they say, and be there for the other person without thinking, okay, what am I going to say next? Most people spend a lot of time thinking about what they're going to say next. And they therefore bypass the listening of the person that's speaking. So there's like, who are you with and what are you listening to and what are they saying or trying to say, even more than whatever comes out of their mouth. So you are already determining, as I speak, the cadence I use, the word choice I use, the ideas that I use, you're already getting something about me that I'm not even saying out loud. You're getting something like you get an idea of where I'm coming from that is quite different maybe than the actual content dripping out of my mouth. So inside that listening, you get to create a return volley, if you will, that is consistent with where I am. The more adept you get at listening, the more you can see what it is I'm looking for on the return, or what kind of thought am I really asking you to share with me. So it creates that. But there's even a different kind of listening, which is contextual listening. Contextual listening is where and when are we talking and what's on the line, right? Like right now we're online. I get that there's going to be several thousand people who someday will hear us or see us say this. So what I'm speaking to is towards that group of people. I already have it determined that my conversation is to be shared with that group of people who I assume is your regular fan base download, who are already into how you think. So I'm now getting to use your fan base to deliver my particular message in an interchange with you. All of those things, listening to the context, listening to the listenership, like who's out there and why and what's being called for, and then listening to the other person allows me to deliver my voice much more effectively into the space that it's being called for. That's radical listening. Really listening to what's being said, what's being said in the unsaid, and then what's being said in the environment that's calling forth whatever conversation is on the line.
That is powerful. Hold on. I don't have my usual setup. Usually I have another console where I can take notes. Like that is good shit. So it's listening to what is being said. It's listening also to what is being unsaid.
Yeah.
And then it's listening or having an awareness of the environment, which is drawing out what is being said and creates multiple degrees of implication, basically.
Yeah, context, reconfiguration, recontextualization of what's being really asked for.
Radical listening. Is that a term you coined? Like that's a good one.
I didn't coin it. I know my first friend who brought it to my attention, but it's certainly not my. Like it.
So can you explain? I mean, there's a certain amount of. I mean, you've got decades of developing these theories, and I imagine there's a much longer process of accepting beyond just mere faith that everything you're saying is grounded in science and it's demonstrated through clinical utility over time. Like basically that for people to buy into you, they may not be as receptive as me, right? They may need more convincing. Setting that aside though, for now.
Yeah.
How does it actually work? The true voice modality that leads to healing that medication never really leads to, because it just band-aids.
With razor
How does
blades.
it actually happen?
It's not just Band-Aids. It's Band-Aids with razor blades embedded in them.
Okay, yeah, exactly, right. It's like a corrosive band-aid.
I wish it was just a Band-Aid, then it would work.
But so how does, I mean, I've experienced it. I know, like, I am so much saner. It's like the crazier I get, the saner I get.
Yeah.
But how does it actually work?
Because really all we really want more than anything in the whole world is to be heard. Period.
I already knew the damn answer. That's it. Of course. That's what everybody wants.
It's what everybody wants. So go ahead and do it. Like, really listen. Like, really be there. And when you share with somebody, like, share from a space of really being curious and wondering what it is that's being said over there. And when you hear somebody, you give them access to really work to hear you, because each of us actually know how to listen too. I wrote a really cool article. I guess I'll have to dig it up. I think I know where to find it. It's called the Sound of Listening, and it talks about among other things, it talks about Beethoven, and it's like, dude, like, we don't even know about genius like that. There's no geniuses walking around the planet right now like that. There just isn't.
No,
Like,
not that are writing the Ninth Symphony with no hearing.
There's no, what is that? What? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Like, you did what?
Yeah.
Right? Or last night I spent the night listening to Johann Sebastian Bach. And when, literally, I don't know that there's ever been a genius like that guy. Ever. Beethoven, Mozart, all combined. Because he's the first dude. He's the one who's bringing that sound out of nothing. He's the one
he's improvising half of it.
He doesn't even, and he got no studios. He's got no recordings. He's got no symphony. The symphony hasn't even been designed yet. The dude is creating symphonies without symphonies being designed.
Yeah.
He's making noise. He's making noise from instruments that have never made noises like that. And then he's giving it notes so that it's reproducible 500 years later without any changes. And it's simply the best music you've ever heard still.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, I'm not just being agreeable. I am a massive fan of Bach.
Oh yeah, massive. I know my next book. I was telling my wife my next book. I think if I was to come off on really the truth, my next book is about. If I ever get to time, which I think I could just create, like, fuck it, I can not give a fuck too, and just like write this book, which is looking at Johann Sebastian Bach and his interplay with Salvador Dali. And like really looking at how crazy these guys are, but also getting that they got something. They brought some humanity to who they were as an artist. So what is true voice? What really is here? What does it work? True voice also comes in art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening. My creative 8, that's the list. Art, music, dancing, singing, writing, cooking, drama, and gardening. And so we have, if you really look at that, there is we all know what the truth is. How do I know that we know? Because if I would tell you right now that you're going to die tonight, it's over. Oh, by the way, ticker tape, it just came. Today's your last day. What are you going to do with the rest of your day? You'll figure out a truth that you haven't told somebody, and you'll tell it to them between now and then. More than likely, if you're like me. You're like, oh, if we're going to die today, I better call my cousin and let him know that I stole $10 from him 25 years ago. Or I better tell my wife one more time how much I love her. Or maybe I haven't told her enough. Or better, tell my kids that I'm proud of them. Or whatever it is that you gotta do. But you're going to lean on that truth, the one that you have not been saying because you're afraid or acquiesced. We care about the truth, and we care about being heard. We care that we matter. We just want to matter. We just want to be loved. We just want to be heard. That's what we want more than anything. Once we have an excuse or a condition or a syndrome that says something like, okay, I have, and then you name some acronym, ABC or PTS or whatever you want to call it. It's almost like you get an identity now and you're heard as that. It's like, Oh, I'm one of those people that I'm on the autistic spectrum.
Mhm.
That's like a new one these days. That's super sexy, except it isn't. That's 2000. It's like 2021. Like being ASD at this point, it's like, dude, that was it last year. Don't you have something better than that? Because now you can go with like, even Asperger's. It's like that's so yesterday. Like, come on, there's got to be a new one. And so I think there's some new diagnosis coming out on the backside of COVID that'll be kind of fun and interesting, and new mental health diagnoses. Because when we have, then we're heard. In some ways, we're given a false identity for being one of us. Like we have an us, we have a group, we have a tribe. Us
Yeah.
people with
It's
B.
so, oh God, it's so real what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Not everybody
It's
can hear
anything
this.
is better than being anonymous.
Exactly. Anything is better than being anonymous. It's really interesting. Really interesting. Yeah.
And so you're essentially saying that by finding and unleashing your true voice, you no longer need any counterfeit identity or counterfeit notoriety to have been heard, seen, felt, and so forth. And so all those labels can fall away.
Well, they really can. And the thing that's really exciting about what you said, I think, as you were saying it, I realized it, is you actually get to resonate with everyone then. Because there's nobody who isn't at least wishing that they could be more authentic at the core. So when you show up authentic, even if you say something diametrically opposed to your, friend over there, they will appreciate you and respect you for your authenticity, even if you're in sheer and total disagreement with what it is that's important to them.
That is a really profound, I'm experiencing what you just said as a really profound insight, that when you actually become truly authentic and thus by definition truly unique, that is actually when you essentially all tribalism falls away. A tribe of one is a tribe for all.
That's
because
right.
And everybody resonates with it because they see in it what they want for themselves, or they feel in it what they want for themselves.
Exactly. And that's where subtle art comes in as well. That's as a way of looking at life. So I think that's too. It's at some point, stop giving a seriously. It doesn't help you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean step on your neighbor. It just means stop giving a fuck. Don't step on your neighbor, but stop giving a fuck.
Yeah, it is really interesting. It's hard to explain. It's like trying to explain the color green or something. Like what happens in a life when, for whatever the catalyst was, and for me, I could stack them up and say it was trauma, it was pain, it was this, it was overcoming, it was the slow rebuilding of confidence, and whatever whole sequence. But however you get there, the day you actually arrive at like, I am my only, not my priority or my main, but my only focus in life is being fully myself.
Now we're talking.
Not even if I go broke, even if I lose my family, even if I pay unpayable prices by most people's standards, and you have to be willing to, I think. And that's why I even said earlier that it wasn't, or maybe it was on this show. I think maybe it was on an earlier show, but like, even after I've had kids, there have been risks that I've taken that people would have said that is an irresponsible risk for a father to take because you're a provider. But I could not have not taken the risk and still been fully myself.
Interesting.
And I knew that in the grand scheme, the greater gift to my children was to show them what it looks like when someone is fully expressed,
all right,
even more than when someone stays safe.
That's right. So I'm going to share, and I'll share this publicly since you've done it. I'm going to share something about what happened to me today without naming this man. We don't need to name him. And if he listens, my God, he'll feel famous and he'll probably heal the two of us forever if he ever gets around to listening, but he won't. But if he did, that'd be pretty awesome. So this morning, I do some expert witness work inside the courtrooms, and it's the last remaining part of who I get to be as a recovering retired psychiatrist. I still sometimes play in the courtroom for interesting cases. And this man called me. He's a doctor. He called me and hired me a few months ago so that I could represent him because he said he wrote a letter to a particular patient or a patient's wife, or he wrote a letter on behalf of a patient's wife, calling her a particular diagnosis, and that the board or the jurisdiction of whatever read it and felt that he had gone overboard, but really he only messed up one word, and he thinks that he got misinterpreted, and he wanted me to actually read the letter and then exonerate him and tell the board. That's how experts work. Like, let them know that, hey, you're over this overkill. So I said I would do that. He paid me the retainer, he gave me his attorneys, and then we've had, I don't know, probably 11 discussions between the three of us, between the three of them and me. I don't know, 8, 10, 11 discussions. And when it all came down to it, I finally got to look at this letter, and the letter's a piece of shit. It's just a piece of, it's terrible. He messed up. They've been misrepresenting this letter to me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go into a courtroom and raise my right hand and say that that's okay. I can't. I don't give a shit what you've told me. As of right now, I can't raise my right. I know you've hired me and you're hoping to exonerate him and save his license and do the right thing and blah, 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 and everything's okay. It's only one word. I'm like, this is not only one word. This is one piece of shit. And I am not going to go in there, raise my right hand and say that it's okay. You go hire some smoking gun to do that, because I'm not doing that. So I told them that last week. I'm like, I'm not even going to write your report. Let's figure out something new, because if I write a report, it's discoverable and you're just going to lose your license. So let's not do that. Mm-hmm. Let's come up with something new. All three of them ganged up on me this morning and tore me a new one. All three of them together. Like rip me, like publicly. Like, really? They're so furious with me for hiring me and me not agreeing with what it is they wanted me to say, that they are willing to take me out. Not me again, hopefully not all the way out, but they're willing to screw with me.
Mm-hmm.
They want their money back. They want, they're willing to write negative reviews. I'm like, and I'm pressed with, okay, what am I supposed to do here, right? You want me to raise my hand and lie? What do you want me to do? So I have to figure out, what's a good man do in this situation?
I mean, God, yeah, I don't know that I have any advice.
I know what I'm going to do, but you get that this tore me up for a while. I was like, wow. And you know what my wife said? I was sitting there at lunch kind of wondering what to do. And she's like, this is a situation where you really got to ask, you got to let it go and get that there's a lesson here. Ultimately, God's got, it's like, thanks for walking you through that thing, whatever it was. I'm not going to work with him ever again. I'm not going to work with anyone they refer me to ever again. Mm-hmm. And thank God that's all that happened, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, is this the first, call it ethics-based fallout that you've experienced? Because I would imagine that based on this position you've taken in general, you've had a lot of recoil, I'm sure.
No, I've every so often. In fact, that's what he was aiming at. I have a couple negative reviews from 2008 and 2011 when I didn't give people medicine they thought they wanted. And then I got some hecklers from that group, maybe 2 or 3 hecklers that chase me around and put in negative reviews every so often. And then they make it look like there's like a lot of them. Like I don't know, they get high and write some or something. I don't know what they do, right? And it's unreversible. I can't do anything about it. It just sits out there.
Yeah, I know. I used to have an agency that did reputation management for small businesses, and they would try to ask us to get Google reviews taken down, and you can't.
You just can't, And so I have had those experiences, and the idea is I am proud of my thin skin on the one hand. Like, that's pretty cool to still be sensitive enough to feel it.
Yeah.
That I'm not Grant Cardone quite yet. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I got shit to do, so I can't give a fuck. I hear you. You really want me to refund you? All right, here's your money. I poured in hours and time for you. You know that. And
I mean, can you at least get them to sign a non-disparagement agreement or something before you give them the money back?
Yeah, that'd be good. I suppose maybe something like that.
Yeah. But then you got to hire an attorney to write one up.
I know. And it's just be cool.
By the way, I'm glad you're saying this, because a lot of our audience, a lot of the audience for this show is very entrepreneurial. They're either aspirationally entrepreneurial or actively entrepreneurial. And I think sometimes I just want to say as a general statement, it is incredible and in both demoralizing and also awe-inspiring how good human beings are at complicating and obfuscating and making your life as a business owner really annoying.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like there will never be a complete catalog of all the things that can go wrong or be a headache in owning a business. That list will never be complete. It's amazing.
It is amazing. It is. Yeah, it is. And there's like, wow, what are you really asking? And it goes on, and you can just take it on as challenges. So this guy I told you that I trusted more than anyone else, this guy was the meanest, nastiest youngster for sure I've ever run across. He had an encounter last month or 2 months ago that no human being should have. Some guy rolled up on him with a big old mag light and ready to kill him and tell him that he was going to kill him for he was sitting in a parking lot that he shouldn't have been in. And my friend is like, hey, I'm just waiting on a tow truck. And this guy's like, he's like, no, I'm a peaceful dude. The guy in the other car has no idea that he's dealing with a dude who could just crack him in half in about a second. So my friend is looking at him like, wow, I don't do that anymore. But that's because I'm a peaceful guy waiting on a tow truck. Mm-hmm. And for you to keep, and he's like, I'm going to come back with my friends and we're going to, you either be here or you're going to be in a morgue. He's like, so, to hear him tell this story, it's tear-jerkingly hilarious. He never actually raises a fist to this guy. And the guy is left on his knees crying. And by the time this is over, the guy is just destroyed from the heart outward for the fact that he's just a fearful, injured kid. That's all he is. And he shouldn't have with this. He shouldn't have with my friend. No one should.
But he just talked to him. You're saying
he just did. He's like, look, he did at one point, he, what's it called? Pop the trunk. He did that at least once, and that was enough to scare the other dude. But this is the thing. You just get tests at the level that you are. That's my point. You get the next test at the level that you are, and you might fail the test, or you might not. So in this case, maybe what happened to me today is don't take cases like that anymore.
Yeah, well, what do they say? New levels, new devils, right?
Yeah, new levels, new devils. Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. You get tested for where you are, and if you want to go someplace higher or lower, you should expect another level of test.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Dr. Moss, I wholeheartedly agree with you. This has been a really, really enjoyable, empowering, and hopefully valuable conversation for the listeners. I know it's been amazing for me. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for having this conversation. And honestly, I just want to sort of acknowledge, you probably had a fairly fear-ridden moment when that moment when you were like, okay, I'm in a field that is fundamentally wrapped around a business model of prescribing drugs. And so I'm not just changing my mind. I will not be able to unring this bell. My life is fundamentally going to change directions when I find my authentic voice and say how I feel. And I just want to acknowledge you for actually doing that.
Thank you.
Because I'll bet you there's thousands of psychiatrists that feel it and won't say it.
I don't know. I hope that's true. I don't know if that's true. There's not that many out there as far as I am at this point. And, I think you're right. I think that they kind of know it. But, I'm going to be honest with you. Even on the back end of today's incident with the guy I just told you about, I get nabbed like every so often, maybe every day, a headhunter will come after me to offer me a job, a temporary job over there, filling in for vacation or something. So there it was, telepsychiatry in Northern California. I just don't leave my house, make a couple $100 an hour. And I felt it. I felt the pull, and it's been several months since I felt the pull. But it was like, yeah, why not? You know, when I could use some income because I'm
It's
about
like that.
to.
It's like that moment in the Matrix when the guy says, "Honestly, I just want to drink my wine and eat my steak," and he lets him plug him back in, right, and wipe
Yep,
his memory.
exactly.
You felt that pull, right?
I did feel the pull, and
Yeah.
you know, my wife's like, just feel the pull. The truth is, if I called him tomorrow, I'd have that job Monday, and I could use the income for sure, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, it would be super cool to have that income. But I already know that with that income comes soul sacrifice at a super deep level. And my true voice, this idea of who I now get to be synonymous with the word true voice would be obfuscated a little bit. And I don't have time for that.
Yeah. Well, I applaud you, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So the world, first of all, tell us where people can go get that course. I think your course sounds wonderful. Tell them how to get it.
So the best way is really at this point still to set up a discovery call with me. The best way to get me is Dr. Fred at welcometohumanity.net. Depending on when you're listening to this, we probably already have a True Voice community. So that's true-voice.circle.so, true-voice.circle.so. And there's where you can get to True Voice Broadcasting and True Voice Podcasting. That's for beginners and for podcasters whose podcasts aren't performing quite the level they wish they were. And I have some great co-leaders with that. So it's super fun, TVP and TVB. And then also for your listeners, if they like what I've been saying, you know, and you mentioned my book, I'm going to give away my free book to your listeners. That's called Find Your True Voice. So the way you get to that is findyourtruevoicebook.com, findyourtruevoicebook.com, and you sign up there, and I'll send you the whole real book right there to your mailbox. It's a fun book. I read it, and I actually like it. And when I read it, I'm like, I could have said that. Oh, that was me. Anyway, so there's that. And, you know, I like to expert speaking as well. So the signature speech I was just saying, you know, getting your voice out into a room and being applauded for it. And finally, the big thing I want to say is, depending on when this is airing, We the People Summit I'm the host at that. And that We the People Summit starts on April 23rd. I have 24 influencers that are speaking over the next 6 weeks to what it meant to become an influencer. Some of them are household names with millions of followers. Many of them are that. And we're really speaking to this idea that true voice is the essence of what it takes to be an influencer, and that you're not an influencer once you get a certain number of followers. You're an influencer once you get in touch with your true voice and affect at least one person. Like now you've done it. And so I'm inviting everybody to get that, and all proceeds from that go to Raise Them Incorporated, which is my wife is, I mentioned 4 times already here, is 100% Ukrainian. So it goes to those people who have been devastated and displaced in this war. And we're looking to raise $1 million by the end of May. And I think we're on a real good route path to have that get done. So that's at wethepeoplesummit.online. Okay, that's .online, remembering the online. And the same thing with my book was findyourtruevoicebook.com. And then Dr.
Sure, we'll get all those links and put them in the show notes wherever this appears.
Super cool. Yeah.
Nobody has to remember. And now I see a site, welcometohumanity.net. Is that your site?
That's my main website. That's where I've been. That's the overriding brand, I suppose. That's the one that, you know, by the time I really started stepping out of conventional psychiatry, that's made sense to me. And by now your listeners will hear and you get that it's, you know, self-explanatory, implicit in what I'm about.
If you loved that episode, then you're definitely gonna love this one. Check it out.
People often believe that if you have a complex illness, then the treatment must be complex too, and that's also not true. You can actually fix really complex matters if you understand those 3 workings of the mind and put them into practice.